Okay, and good evening. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Lindsay Allen, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Philanthropy within Suffolk University's Advancement Office. We have over 130 parents who have registered for tonight's program. We are so delighted that you've joined us this evening for the program with my colleague Dave Mary, who will be discussing helping your student navigate today's job market. Following Dave's remarks, we've allowed 15 minutes for a Q&A, so please feel free to enter your question in the chat at any point during our program. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Dave Mary. Dave joined Suffolk University in 2020 and is the Associate Provost and Executive Director of Suffolk Center for Career Education and Professional Development. In this capacity, Dave works to generate and implement career-related initiatives and oversees programs in professional education and lifelong learning in alignment with Suffolk's career and experiential learning goals. Dave holds a BA from the University of New Hampshire, an MA in Student Development and Post-Secondary Education from the University of Ohio, and a doctorate in Higher Education Administration from Northeastern University. His doctoral and ongoing research focuses on implementing organizational change within career center education centers to meet the challenges and opportunities of the changing world of work. He's a tremendous asset to all of us here at Suffolk, and I know you'll enjoy getting to hear from him. Dave?
Lindsay, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. Very excited to have so many wonderful participants this evening to talk to you more about how we can help together prepare your students for the workplace. A very brief agenda about the world of work and the future. Talking a little bit first about the realities of today's job market, and then the question I get asked the most in my professional life, what are employers looking for? And then going right into the nitty-gritty about how we can prepare students for success in that job market. And again, as Lindsay said, leaving some time for a Q&A at the end. So I do want to start talking about today's job market, which is never a fun dinner conversation with folks these days. But I do try to rely on data as much as possible. And so looking at Q4 of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as someone in my job is wont to do sometimes, we see that there's a lot of instability in young recent college grads and young workers, but those are the populations where we often see that instability. You can see the steady lines across bigger populations, but lots of instability historically across recent college grads and young workers in general. There's still a great increase in employment for recent college grads compared to their peer group. Raise your hand if you can see where COVID happened in unemployment. But what we do notice is that recent college grads are facing a tough job market, but it's not necessarily bearing out in unemployment numbers. So they are finding jobs. It's just the process of finding jobs sometimes can be more difficult, or the actual jobs they are securing can be less aligned with their goals. So the actual unemployment numbers are never wonderful, never like to hear, but not so staggering compared to the rhetoric that we hear about how difficult the job market can be right now. So what these numbers don't show is quality of job, earnings potential, earnings in general, lots of nuances that are really important to the world of work. Similar data from the BLS, and again, just putting the range in here, looking at earnings. Earnings are flat for everybody, so that's not unique to young graduates or young people, but we still see significant earnings increase for students who have a bachelor's degree. So that's still carrying a lot of professional weight in the working world. Even more, the 25th percentile of bachelor's degree earners are earning more than the median of just a high school diploma. So that's what we like to see, that credibility, the ROI of the degree is still holding strong, even in a market that seems really unpredictable and uncertain and challenging. The question that this entire talk could have been called is, what about AI? And I don't know about you, but I hear enough talks to say, well, in this age of AI and automation, and I start to tune it out at some point because we hear so much about it. But oftentimes people don't know what to say at the end of that sentence. For every research report that I've read that says AI is going to decrease the net number of jobs and take jobs from people and take entry-level jobs, there's a corresponding report that says, actually, this means that young people are more in demand. Their tech savviness is going to make these AI-enabled jobs more possible, that there are going to be more opportunities for employment in the future. the jury is still out on this. Like many tech trends, it's going to be a bit of this and a bit of that, and the net change in jobs may not be as different as the qualitative change in the types of jobs that are available. So AI is shifting tasks more than it's eliminating entire roles. So what we find is that students who are able to, that old now quote saying, AI won't take your job, somebody who can use AI will take your job, that is still holding true. That people who are able to incorporate AI into their role and adapt their job to use AI as that job changes are more secure. Some of the recent news about big layoffs for companies that said they were letting go of workers in favor of hiring AIs to do the work, there's actually a big sort of backswing in regret and also redaction of some of those layoffs, where companies see that it was not a good business move and also just not efficient and effective. So McKinsey, which is a source that I go to very often, they did great work during the pandemic, very accurate work. They won't put a position out about whether or not there'll be more or fewer jobs. They sort of paint some pictures there. But what's evident is that students, people who are able to adapt to using AI in their work, regardless of their profession, are going to be secure in the future. So that's encouraging. Sort of bigger look at numbers, just the World Economic Forum. They do their Future of Jobs report. The last one was January 25. I'm eagerly awaiting the January 26 version. But the data from last year show there's a little over a billion jobs in the world. Um, there's predicted to be a net loss of 92 million jobs. So jobs that are obviated due to many reasons, not just AI, but the economy, all sorts of factors into play there. But additionally, a net gain in 170 jobs, whether that just be for, again, the economy booming in a particular industry, net job gain in tourism or in retail, but also net jobs gained as a factor of new technologies. So there is sort of just, again, for the people who are losing their jobs in this 92 million, that's really impactful. But the net number of jobs, the total capacity, is going to continue to rise to projections. So the key takeaway is that the percentage of grads landing jobs is still very high. It's not impossible to find a job. It just feels like the sky is falling. The net number of available jobs is likely to remain stable or increase, but will require new skills for new tasks. And there are few fields that I would say, if a friend came to me and said, should my son or daughter or student study this field? Is that going to be a job in the future? There are few fields that I would say now no that I wouldn't have before, just because of recent trends. But instead, I would say prepare to be adaptable along a much longer time frame. So don't stop following this major or career path now because of recent news, but be prepared for that job to change slowly over time, as all of our jobs do and continue to change over time. It doesn't matter whether you're an English major or a business major or a communications major, the job opportunities are not greater or lesser because of AI. That's just the way that you can employ your major in those roles that is changing. The nice thing is, no matter what the statistics are, securing a job is not like playing a slot machine. We do hear lots of students, do the spray and pray method of applying to 1,000 jobs and hoping they hear back. But when you're strategic about it, you can be much more successful and much more happy with the results in the end. And that's what we want to work with students to do. The question of what are employers looking for? So looking a little bit more narrowly at the employers who are hiring college students in the US, in the Boston region, what are they looking for from college graduates? I am asked that question in every meeting from students, faculty, the president of the university. I actually was at a conference, and one of my counterpart from another college looked at me and we both said, "What are employers looking for?" And we laughed because we get asked that question so often. And it can feel like this cabal of secretive people who have these arcane criteria. The employers are looking for what? We'll find out. I wonder if this will be acceptable to the employers. And that's really disheartening to students and to professionals if they think, what do employers want? But employers are people. Many people on this call, I wouldn't doubt that, have hired or are supervising people right now. Employers are looking for basically what they've been looking for quite some time when they're hiring students. So again, the rhetoric around a whole new brave new world is true to some extent, but it's not categorically different from what it always has been. Again, the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, the 10 most significantly growing skills. So employers saying, what skills do we see as being increasingly important over the next 5 years? The top three skills are not surprising. These are not jobs that are growing. These are skills within multiple or maybe every particular industry. So being familiar with AI, big data, networks, technological literacy, those are the fastest growing skills in demand. But the bottom seven, creative thinking, resilience, curiosity and lifelong learning, analytical thinking, leadership, those are the hallmark of a liberal arts education. And you can imagine why they are so important over the next 5 years if you put yourself in the shoes of an employer. You are probably an employer, some of you. You're looking for people who have both the ability to onboard new technologies, AI or whatever's next, comfortably, but also have those uniquely human characteristics of being able to lead and think critically and be discerning and be empathetic. And those are the skills that in tandem are growing in importance over time. And again, that's not new. Those have been some of the top skills for quite some time now and part of an education. And when we hear from employers, how do they want to hear about those skills? They want students to come to interviews prepared to show how their skills solve a problem, to talk about the skills that they have. One of the biggest hurdles that we face with students is their ability to articulate their skills. They have them, they've demonstrated them. How can they talk about them in an interview or on LinkedIn or in a resume? Experiential learning or work during college, connecting coursework, connecting extracurricular activities. Again, a student who can say, I did this, I learned this skill, and here's how I can use it in this job. That pattern we see, again, I've been in this sort of role for about 18 years, and that's been consistent. That's what employers want to see. And again, if you put yourself in the role, you'd want to hear someone be able to make that type of connection as well. And that's the type of thought process that we're helping students to build out. Employers are looking for students when we ask them, when we talk to employers at Suffolk at a career fair, or after a presentation, or after we do hiring surveys. We say, what are you looking for in students? And they laugh. They go, we're all 1,000 different people, right? But they're looking for somebody with some professional work experience, even if it's not directly in the job they're applying to, in the field they're applying to, some professional work experience. It could be an internship, it could be a part-time job, work experience. They want a student who can talk about their own skills and experiences and connect them to the job, like I've been saying. They want somebody who's done some research about the organization. The number of times we have students apply to jobs, go to interviews, and not be able to talk about the job description that they're applying for, or not show that they have done some research about the company, is something that we don't hear often, but when we do, that stands out to employers. They want students who have said, I read the job description, I know this about it, I researched your company, and I love this about it. And then, like I said, the last point, they can say, I'm really excited to work here. Because as you can imagine, when people are hiring, they want to make sure that they're hiring for the long term. And so they want to see some evidence that the student knows what the job is, can do it, but is excited to be there. And those are some of the things that we hear the most often from employers. Again, hopefully that's not startling, but it's very different than the headline news. So that is the very broad sweeping strokes. I know it's not again not rocket science and not anything I can publish in a paper because it's really not new. It's what people are looking for when they're hiring new talent. They want energetic, capable young people who have done some work in the past and are eager to learn new things and apply it at the job. How can we prepare our students at Suffolk, your student that you have sent to Suffolk to be successful? As somebody who just spent 11 days at home with my children for February vacation and now 2 snow days, I know how much you want your students to leave the house. And I also know how hard it can be to give them advice that they'll listen to. Mine are 10 and 7, so I have a longer row to hoe. But I can empathize with that desire to be helpful, but not always knowing how, and knowing that sometimes the advice that we're able to give may not be heard in the same way that somebody else might be able to give. So how can we, as the parents, caregivers, supporters of these students, support them? I want to give just a brief overview of what our Career Center looks like. This is just our advising team. We have a relatively large, I shouldn't say relatively, we have a very large career center for the sized university that we are. That's an investment that Suffolk made in 2020. We have a 6 times lower student to career advisor ratio than the national average. And that's because we want to form personal relationships with students so that they feel comfortable asking questions, that they feel comfortable um, being unsure about what their next step is, and so that we can track progress over time and say, remember last year when you asked about this? I just heard about this great opportunity. You should check it out. And because of that, we have this great team that wants to form these personal relationships and be a supporter for your students. And we have the capacity to do it. And so I want to encourage you. There are particular people on the team, I won't go through each of these individuals, who may be more or less aligned with your student's question, but anybody on this team would be able to sit down with them and answer some early questions and then direct them to the right place. And genuinely, I can say these are some of the most personable and helpful and kind people. There's a career center image in people's heads, I think, sometimes about don't come in without a tie and we're going to flay your resume and then send you back out. I'm not sure where that comes from, but these are folks who genuinely want to support and are excited to have a pizza party in the office to get students in. Um, Here's a picture of a party. We are very fortunate to have a great location on the first floor of 73 Tremont, which is a central building on campus. That means that we have really great visibility for students. Come on in anytime. We have an open area that's full of students in this picture, but other times is charging stations, free coffee, connect with an advisor informally, drop-in hours, or just a chance to, touch base with an alum as they're walking by the career center and popping in for a quick, social engagement. So the location we have in Boston is critical for students and employers alike. We had over 2,000 appointments so far this academic year, over 3,500 attendees, multiple students, maybe, or same student maybe multiple times, attending 122 events. My team will tell you that's too many events. We need to stop doing events, but that's how we get students to connect with these concepts is to have opportunities for them to meet with employers and alumni, and to meet in real life, to practice their career skills. And so I'm excited with the engagement that we've been able to have with your students, hopefully, and with students at Suffolk. And I just want to give a sense of the capacity that we have when I say encourage your student to meet with us, encourage your student to attend an event. There will be room for them. So on the wall in the back there, you can see we have our mission statement. Our mission is to support every Suffolk student as you. That word every is really important to us, not just the students who know to come to us or have time to come to us or have it all figured out already, but every Suffolk student. And then there are 4 goals that we have for students there. And that's going to be sort of guiding the rest of my conversation with you all today about what are the things that students can do and you can help them to do to be prepared to be successful in their first job, but then also every job after that. And it's having a plan, gaining experience, building their brand, and growing their network in no particular order. And so that's how I'm going to frame some of the resources, steps, tools, and suggestions that I have for the rest of this presentation. Starting with making a plan. And this is, I would say, the most difficult one to explain to students, surprisingly enough. When we say make a plan to an undeclared student or a first year student, they sometimes hear us saying, decide what you're going to do, figure it out, what's your job going to be. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, it should change over time. We would be shocked and dismayed if students went to college and didn't learn anything new about themselves that changed what they thought about the world. And so if engaging with learning and employment opportunities and new classes didn't shift or maybe focus in their career goals, that would be a miss. So we want this plan to change over time as they learn more about what the options are. But instead of having a long-term goal, which is great, having a long-term goal or 3 is wonderful. It can be a North Star that guides our conversations. The plan really needs to consist of specific next steps. So whether you know exactly the job that you want when you graduate and you've been here for 3 days, which you probably will change your mind, but that's okay. Or if you don't know at all what you want to do, it's the same conversation. What can you do next to find out more about that career path, to learn more about yourself, to explore your options, to meet somebody who's in that role? There's always a next small step that we can help students to take. Specifically, I think a lot of the questions that we have around students who are exploring. I don't know what I want to do. I'm not sure what my options are. It would be reckless to say, well, pick one. choose one. So our next steps often look like how can you learn a little bit more about what the options are that are available to you? And let's make that part of our plan. Those are the next steps in the plan. I want to show some of the tools that we have on our website. What can I do with this major, which we always abbreviate and it's still very long, is a great first stop where we have a lot of students go. It's really just a static website with lots of information on it. And I sort of took a screenshot here of under health and wellness. If I clicked into psychology, what would be available? And some buckets of different jobs, human services, research, education, business and industry. It's giving some examples of jobs that major might relate to, or that people have leveraged that major into in the past. But what's really helpful here is that, there's a theory of employment understanding where as a kid you say there are teachers and firefighters and doctors, there are maybe 10 professions in the world. And the older we get, and especially the more specialized we are in our fields, we realize there are 5 different types of quality assurance manager depending on the day of the week. There are so many types of jobs in the world, so many nuances and specializations, and it's changing every day. And that specificity is what's really helpful and what students are unable to get on their own. So this helps them get some of that language about, well, what is a role there like? What is the day-to-day job like for somebody in human resources or education? What are types of employers I can look at? How do I find out more about that? I recognize the screenshot is too small, which is good. This is just an example, but it gives them some early language that they can find on their own that can help them prompt that next question. Where we might ask them to go next as they're looking for information is our labor market insights tool. And this is something that we pay a subscription for. It has national data from a company called Lightcast, where it is bringing in employment predictions and salary data along with national data around skills, certifications, etc. So once you know what you're searching for, what the name of that job or field might be, you can narrow that down to the county level. So here I have it at Suffolk County. And I can say, what are some of the core tasks in this type of role? What are the employment projected trends? Is this a growing field or not? What types of education might I need to have to get into this role? What are other titles I should be looking for as I look for job descriptions? And then I want to double check my work on this one, but this is what they're showing me. I might go to human resources next. But I know we want to be very honest with students. The days of you can be anything, follow your passion, they're not gone. But we want to be honest and realistic with students and say there are lots of ways to follow your passion. Do you know how you'll be able to budget your earnings in that particular passion? Or is your job going to be your passion, or is your job going to be something a little that incorporates it but isn't exactly your passion? That's poorly phrased, but I think we can all say you can be an artist and deploy creativity in multiple different career pathways. And if somebody would like to choose one, we want them to know all the information about the earnings potential and how they can make a plan around that versus saying, you do it, you can be the most successful one ever, it's going to work out great. We have national data around the salary trends, and that can lead into a conversation around budgeting. Where are you going to live? What does this look like in terms of paying off student loans? So that students are going in eyes wide open, but also more confident and more prepared, even if they're talking about salary negotiation, not necessarily with this particular data, but a sense about what I'm not just getting a job and saying thank you. I'm getting a job because I'm a professional entering a field, and I should know what I'm worth in that field. So these are some of the things that we help students to explore. Last example here, when we talk about making a plan, this was an assignment that we put together for all the first year business students, and we're going to roll out to all first year students next semester in their different classes. They filled out a form and it created this career plan report for them. And it was some very tactical questions, but they assessed their skills in different areas and said, what will you do to build those skills? What are you going to do in the next semester to gain experience? Who's your personal board of advisors? If we said, who's your professional network? That might not mean a lot to 18-year-olds, but we've said, who are the people you go to when you have questions about your future? And then what's one person that you want to add to that this year, and how are you going to go about it? These are the types of questions that we're asking students to make a decision on. And the nice thing about the way we ask these questions in the fall is that this spring we're able to go back and follow up with each student and say, did you? But those SMART goals are really important too. Again, that's measurable, specific, achievable, relevant. They sound small because they are, and that's great. That's what we like to see. So again, that specific next steps, I just want to highlight that piece there. I think it can feel really overwhelming if people in your life are saying, what are you going to do with your degree? What are you going to do when you graduate? It was like when I was, when are you going to finish your dissertation? Do not ask me that again. But those smaller, more tactical questions might land very differently and have more of an impact. So helping your student make a plan, normalize the fact that plans change. I was a music major, a music education major for my first 3 semesters of college, and then I wasn't. And I was very appreciative to my parents because, first of all, I wasn't leaving a very lucrative career path, but they said, that's okay, things change. And I think, if they questioned why, are you sure? Again, there are ways to ask that, but normalize like plans change, and that's okay. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make them, but things change over time. Frame planning questions less as what are you going to do and what can you do next? Again, easier said than done, but I'm sort of imagining how that conversation might go with my own children in various contexts, and there are ways that you can frame it that lands in a different tone. And then encourage meeting with their career advisor early and often. That's why I shared kind of who we are and what we can offer. And I think there's some misconceptions around, well, you're not looking for a job right now. Don't go to the career center. Come to us in your first week because we'd love to meet you and ask what you're all about. And if you don't know yet, that's why we're here. So really encouraging those probing, fact-finding conversations with their career advisors whenever possible. So the second one, sharing their brand. Um, every person has a brand, whether they know it or not. I wish I could find out who said that. Maybe nobody said it and it's just apocryphal, but it's your reputation. It's what people know you for, or it might be true, it might not be. But people know you as something or will learn something about you when they research you. What will that be? And that's what we want to help students build their brand and share it effectively. We work with them to identify their most relevant experiences, skills, and goals. So not just to know them, but to be able to talk about them. And then, yeah, persuasively and strategically share that. So if I say, so tell me about yourself. They'll say, well, I grew up in this town. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Tell me about the relevant things about you that make me want to hire you and connect it to this job. And that's what we help students, again, share that brand of themselves as here are the experiences I have that make me uniquely qualified for what I'm talking to you about today. And that's a hard process for anybody, but particularly students who have a hard time talking about themselves, have never been asked to brag about themselves or interview before, come from a culture that maybe it's frowned upon to be saying all the wonderful things you've done. We need them to do that. And in multiple formats. On their resume, that's a given. On LinkedIn, that's also a given. If you think about you're applying for a job, you see somebody and go, you should bring them in. I wonder what else I can find out about them. People will look for you there. What can you say about yourself on LinkedIn? An elevator pitch, preparing for an interview, preparing for a networking event. It's all the same preparatory event about how do I display who I am in a way that helps me get to where I want to be. And it's a big process. And again, this is most of what an employer will see when they're looking at you. This is a template resume and an alumni students, and so all somewhat fake an example here, but they don't get to meet you right off the bat. They get to read about you oftentimes. And so, how do you put your best foot forward in terms of the skills you've done, the experience you've had in this type of format to get to that next level when you can have an interview, meet with an employer in person? So our first step is oftentimes looking at these types of documents and saying, is this the best version of you? How can we bring out more? It's a lot of asking questions. The most boring and practical slide in my deck, we talk about the PAR method, the problem, action, and result when you're writing a resume. Don't just say, I assisted with social media posts for a marketing campaign. Tell me more about why you did that. How did it help? What were some of the numbers involved? That's how we can take some of those bullets in a resume and make them sound more impactful, or not more impactful than they were, but as they actually were. It's all the truth, but we're just sharing some of the relevance behind that. When students read their bullets on the right-hand side, they go, but I don't know. Is all of that true? Yes, then you did that. But that can be really hard for students to talk about themselves in that language, but that's the language that employers are looking for. And so there's some imposter syndrome that we have to sort of get through there. But one thing I'll also share is that this helps when students say, I don't have any experience. I've only been a waiter. I don't have any experience. I've only been a babysitter. I've only been a nanny. Someone trusted their children with you? Tell me more about that. or you dealt with irate public people and money and changes and crises. Tell me about that. And so there are so many transferable skills from so many jobs that when positioned correctly, um, many people who are hiring have been a waiter, have been a nanny, have worked in retail, and they can recognize somebody who sees those transferable skills and knows how to use them in the future. So this process can feel really artificial to students, but it's important. Some of the ways we can help students, we have career ambassadors. They're peers, they're undergraduate students, 18 peer ambassadors that have drop-ins. One of the things they do, drop-ins Monday and Thursday all day. So your student can go in and say, I don't want to have an appointment yet. I just want to ask this junior, can you look at my resume real quick for me? And that's all day, Mondays and Thursdays. Every first year student this year, we created a Canvas class where there's instructions about writing a resume and a place that they can submit it to get feedback immediately through Canvas, like an assignment. And that's something we're looking to expand in the future. Or at any point, they can set up an appointment or just email their career advisor a copy of their resume. Regardless of how good or bad it is, it will not be the worst resume we've ever seen. And it's important to start working on that as soon as possible. The resume leads to the elevator pitch, the interview prep, and the job. Another tool that we have, talking about AI taking over jobs, is something called Quincia. Quincia is a AI tool for giving resume feedback, but also interview feedback. So it can record an interview, ask you questions, and give you feedback about various aspects of your responses. It does not replace doing a mock interview with a person. It does not replace getting a person to give you feedback on your resume. It can be a great first step for somebody who really isn't sure and wants to make some edits before they meet with a person. And it also serves another wonderful purpose. Many companies have AIs reading resumes as they come in. So this acts like an applicant tracking system and says, if I were a computer, which I am, these are the things I would notice and notice that are missing and notice that are wrong or notice that are hard to read for me as a computer. You should change these so that computers can read them better and see your skills better. And also, here's some human advice. Go meet with a human now. And so it's another layer of support and tool that students have access to. Every student has access to this subscription through Suffolk to get this type of feedback about their resume. They can do an interview, mock interview with their camera, and soon it will be able to view their LinkedIn pages. So I hope it's supplementing my job, but it certainly can supplement their process. So helping your students share their brand, what does that look like? You can help them to recall experiences and skills they've demonstrated. The number of times, it's countless, especially when I was advising early in my career, a student say, I really haven't done much. And I would just ask questions and they led summer trips and started businesses. And oh, that wasn't a real thing. It was. So help them remember all the wonderful things they've done, even if it's not directly related to their job that they want to have in the future, but you know it helped that demonstrates a skill they have. Remember that employers are looking for transferable skills as well as job-specific skills, especially in those first roles. They're going to have to teach them a new software. They're going to have to teach them how things are done. But are they responsible? Are they trustworthy and dependable and hardworking? Show me that. And that's what you can help them to think about. And encourage them to have a resume and LinkedIn profile set up before they meet one. Some of the awkwardest appointments in our office are, hey, I need to submit this by 3. Can you take a look at it? And so just encouraging them, you may not need a resume now, but let's get one put together. Why? Have you talked to somebody just now thinking it's like a will? It's not like a will, but you should think you should have one ready before you need it so that it's not stressful at the last minute. And we are always here to help with resumes. Building their network. This is, I would say, the most underrated part of a career search strategy. 80%, I've seen the number anywhere between 75 and 83 of jobs are secured through networking and other self-directed strategies. What does that mean? It means through some way other than I applied online and got an interview. It means that I knew somebody who was able to make sure I got an interview there. It means I heard about the job first because someone told me about it before it was posted. All of the ways that you know that I knew somebody and therefore I got this opportunity, that is how most jobs are filled. And that's not just filled, but filled better. Higher finding rates, shorter job searches when your network's supporting you, higher quality jobs, higher paid jobs. people are stay at those jobs longer because they were referred by someone who knows them and says you'd be a great fit for this. There are so many benefits. The biggest one I think is just being you get a job. But by leveraging your network and having a network that's working for you when you're part of a job search. Network is something like a resume, but even more so. You can't just develop one when you need it. You need to develop it before you need it. And then if you do it right, it's going to be working for you to help you when you do need it. To say, hey, we've been talking for a while. You're great at this. I just heard about this opportunity at. And the hard part is you won't know how your network will support you or what form that will take, but it does. And that's what these numbers bear out. So networking is one of those things. The reason we have so many events in our office is that networking has to happen at a time and a place. An event, it can't be asynchronous networking. We need to have a time where our students can meet with alumni and employers and industry leaders to practice those skills. And so on our website, you'll always see, I mean, we can only get through in the beginning of next week with the number of events we have on the right, and we always have those listed. But some of the ones that we've had so far this year, we have a series called Employer Coffee Chats. Almost every Tuesday, an employer will come to that front part of our space. They'll bring donuts, encourage students to come in their sweaters, and just talk with them about working at their company. It's a networking event in the most casual sense of the word. And these are some of the employers that we've had come for those coffee chats. And again, that's networking. We have a series called Careers In, where we have a small panel of alumni who work in a particular industry talk about their jobs, but then network with students afterwards. And again, it's a way to casually learn more about. So if you want to go into um, journalism and media, go to this event, learn more about it. If you don't know, go to this event to learn more about it. It's a wonderful way to really, again, be that next step, but also to meet and talk with alumni. What we hear from the panelists and the alums who come to these is they say, hey, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you all. Few students do. And maybe that's not surprising, but if you are the student who says, it was great to meet you, I loved how you said this, I wonder if we could get coffee sometime, and that goes a long way, and that can lead to the next person and the next person. And I know many of the people listening to this have a job because of that in some way, shape, or form, and that doesn't cheapen it. That is the nature of being a human being, is that people and relationships help us to get where we are. Some of the events that we've had recently, over on the left, some pictures of a wonderful networking night that we had just 2 weeks ago, where we had 87 alumni come and 110 students for an hour and a half, 2 hours of networking. It was nonstop conversation. The number of connections that were made were incredible. But one of the most important things that I noticed was it wasn't that a finance student met somebody in finance and a journalism student met somebody in media. It was people talking to alumni and saying, here are some of the questions I have, and alumni saying, here's how I'm navigating the world of work. You should meet my friend this. And that's the type of connection that was happening. So having a really open mind about ways that we can leverage personal relationships to build networks, even when it's not obvious that there's a professional connection there, an industry connection, there's a personal connection. Some of the programs I want to make sure that you all know about, encourage your students to know about. The RAM Alumni Mentoring Program is a structured 5-month mentorship opportunity. Every fall, we have an application for a 5-month mentorship that happens in the spring. Every fall, we have more alumni sign up to be mentors than students sign up to be mentored. So it's another we have capacity situation. But again, the opportunity every year you could have a new mentor signed up, and that lasts with you after that 5 months to ask questions, visit them on site, meet their connections. Same with job shadowing. It's a much shorter commit. It's a day where you go to a job site and an alum or one of our employer partners will say, here's a day in the life at my company. But you're also meeting them and you can follow up with them and say, hey, thanks so much. I have a question about this. And they can become part of your network. And then lastly, we have 9 LinkedIn groups, one for each of our career communities. So healthcare and wellness, arts and humanities, accounting and finance, each of which have close to 1,000, some of them over 1,000 students and alums that are there specifically to share information and opportunities. So again, lots of built-in structured ways to leverage the Suffolk network effectively. Two that I will plug, and maybe a question you could ask your students about next steps is, are you going to one of the 2 career fairs coming up? Tomorrow, we have a large career fair. It cannot snow again. A large career fair from 5 to 7 for healthcare, legal, public service, nonprofit, and STEM. What doesn't it include, you'll ask? We had separate ones in the past, and so many companies overlap so much. it made sense to combine many back into one large career fair. And the following day, on that Thursday this week, we had the Creative Communications and Marketing Career Fair. And we have two other career fairs for STEM and analytics and accounting and finance in the fall, along with many other opportunities. But what I always tell students is you don't have to be looking for a job to go to a career fair. You can go and find out about what opportunities there are, meet employers, talk with them. There's going to be somebody at a table who has no students at it who would love to talk with you about their job. That's a great use of a career fair. So something to check out. Also, we want to encourage students to be proactive. So we have lots of events for them where they can sign up to be mentored, but building their network on their own. If you're not familiar with the LinkedIn alumni search tool, this is something we try to encourage students to be familiar with. But you can search for alumni and reach out to them and say, "Hi, my name's Dave. I'm the same major that you were, and I would just love to hear about how you got where you are." The number of times I've had to convince a student that somebody wouldn't be mad at them for saying that they would be honored and very happy to talk to them. And you can echo that and say either they won't get back to you or they'll be very pleasantly surprised and enthusiastic. So that's some ways that you can help them grow their network. Share how people in your circle have helped you in your career path. I think we all learn to know that it's not nepotism, it's not favoritism most of the time. It's, oh, I knew somebody and that's how I found out about this and this led to that. And that's really the way that a lot of successful careers are built. And so sharing your own story about that, demystifying the experience of reaching out to alums and other professionals, saying it's fine, reach out to them, ask them questions. The worst they could do is not answer. And oftentimes they'll be so pleased that you asked. And then making introductions within your own network, no matter how different it is from your student's career trajectory. You know people who might be able to share an experience with them. Nothing else, it can help them break that fear of meeting an adult, professional in their field, professional in the world, and just saying, "Here's who I am. Can I ask you some questions?" But helping them make some of those first introductions can be something that can be really helpful, even if it's not directly aligned with where they're going in their career. And the last thing that I will do, maybe in 2 minutes, maybe a few more minutes, is gaining experience. I will say that all experience is good experience. It does not have to be, I was a mini financial analyst, so now I'll be a real financial analyst. Trying new things is how all of us know what we want to do. It's how we can be honest when we say, I know I want to do this job. I've done something like it. Or I know I don't want to do this job anymore, music teacher Dave. I tried it, and that's not what I want to do anymore. It diversifies your skill sets from other people in your field. So you might have a really unique experience that's not related to your job, but it's additive. And I can do this, and I bring this perspective. You meet people you wouldn't ordinarily meet. Again, no network is a bad network. Some of the most sought after skills are transferable. So no matter what you're doing, if you're leading, coordinating, planning, that's a great skill. And there's a really fuzzy correlation between major and career path, especially over time. Very few people in the world are an English major and then go become an Englisher, or are a management major and then become a manager. People's jobs and career paths are more nuanced than that. So you never know what skill or experience can come in handy in the future. So I say any experience is a good experience, but internships are better. And you can understand why. It's because it is related to work in some ways. It's more easy to draw that parallel and that connection. 61% of interns nationally received full-time offers after their internship. So, finish up school and come back and work for us. Um, uh, for people who had paid internships, they get an average of $3,000 more, on average in their starting salaries after college. And they're 20% less likely to leave their first roles within a year because they know where they're working, or they know what they want to do. Leave in this context is either be fired or choose to leave, both of which are not great in your first year at a job. You want the success of, I found a great first position for me. All of that and so much more is benefited from having a work-based learning internship type of experience. One of the ways at Suffolk that we want to support that is we know that so many fields don't have paid internships. So our students might be choosing between, I have this paid waiter gig, restaurant gig, food service, but I want to have this great internship experience that's unpaid that would really elevate my professional capacity. For students in their first and second summer, any undergraduate students transfer or first time in college, there's a $3,500 summer career development stipend. It's not competitive. So as many students who apply and have a qualifying experience and get that stipend. And that's a way for students to get that first round of professional experience. I say first round because I'm often asked, well, in the first summer, isn't that early? It is. And guess what they get to do the next summer? Something even better. So it can be a really good stepping stone to other experiences. But it starts that early. One of the best things that I hear from students after this is, I hated that. I'm changing my major. And I say, that's fantastic. How wonderful that you know that this early. But all joking aside, learning what it's like to really work in a particular industry, or to say, I learned I want to do a little bit more like this, or I met somebody who's doing this cool thing I'm checking out next. Those are the types of experiences I love to hear about after an internship. And the stipend makes it possible for folks. If your student is in their first or second year, coming up on their first or second summer, have them check it out. Applications are due for the summer on May 25th. Don't leave money on the table. And if you have any questions about it, our website has a lot of criteria, but it's basically, must be enrolled for the following semester, must have a job offer in hand. They're all pretty basic ones. We had 102 students receive it last summer. Just some quick pictures of some of the things that they did. Some of the most meaningful jobs sometimes aren't able to pay their interns, but are able to give those students so much more work when they know they are being paid. If a student has an unpaid internship, it's easy for it to be, oh, well, don't make them do too much. This isn't paid. These students get asked to do a lot in a great way. So you can help your student find experience. Ask when, not if, they plan to find an internship or other work experience. It ideally will be a requirement for graduating students at some point at Suffolk, but it's not yet. So it should be implicit expectation. When are you going to get some work experience? There's lots of ways to do it. Lots of people trying to help you. Reinforce that finding a job is a process, not a transaction. We hear from students, I went to the Career Center and I wasn't able to find an internship after the one appointment I had or after the one day. It can take time. So don't give up early. Work with somebody over time to get that internship in that job. And then remember that an internship provides benefits even if it's not 100% aligned with your career goals. You don't have to find a mini version of your dream job for it to be an incredible internship and really build your professional capacity. So those are some of the things that you can reinforce for students, or that may not be intuitive, or maybe a new way of looking at it for you that can help them find those experiences. So finding those experiences, finding ways that you can support them, asking questions in a more general way, and just being less focused on the outcome of graduation and more focused on the process of what can you do today to get more information or get more experience. Those are some of the ways that we can work together on supporting your students' career success. So fewer than 15 minutes, I apologize, but some time for Q&A, and I would love to hear about any of the questions that folks have that we can help you with. Oh, Lindsay, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you for that. We did get a couple questions in the chat, so if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and ask a couple of these. One question is, are there employers that specifically hire from Suffolk or offer internships to Suffolk students?
Yes. So there are very few employers in the world that have an exclusive hiring relationship with any university. And I say that just because typically employers want to leave their options open. That caveat out of the way, we have many employers, specifically Suffolk alums, who traditionally do hire Suffolk students year over year over year. And it tends to be sort of a bullseye around campus in Boston of where Suffolk alumni are and how they continue to hire back at Suffolk. So it's not we only hire Suffolk students policy, but sort of a tradition and a legacy position, as it were. There are more than I could list in that sense, and there's not an official list of them anywhere. But I will say, having worked at other institutions, Suffolk alumni are the most likely to want to hire a Suffolk student because they saw the benefit of what their education got them. They come back to Suffolk because it's local for them oftentimes, and because they want to give an opportunity back to students. So we see a lot of alumni hiring more so than than I've seen at other universities. So.
Great, thank you for that. Next question is, how can students find summer internships in research labs, specifically biology or chemistry majors in the Boston area?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my old stomping grounds, was working with the college, science students, finding positions. What I will say is that we have a wonderful resource in Handshake. Handshake is our job board and many other things at Suffolk, where employers post positions to multiple colleges, and it can come to Suffolk and other colleges and universities, but be posted for students to see and apply to right there. What we do every day is we vet the ones that are coming through and curate certain jobs into collections. So there's a science and technology collection of jobs that are high quality, local, vetted employers. And that's what I would encourage your student to look at first. Um, and then I would say setting up an appointment with their career advisor to look at other sources. So every field is going to have another, oh, have you checked out this board? Have you looked at this position? For science and science and biology, oftentimes it's looking at local hospitals for particular types of positions, looking at local research labs for particular types of positions. And so their advisor can help them navigate that space, that unique space.
Great, thank you. What is the best scenario if you were to, give a best scenario of a graduating senior in terms of internships?
Yeah. So, common misconception is that graduating seniors don't get an internship. I think it's, you have an internship, then you graduate, then you get a job. There are absolutely internships that are available to sometimes seeking, but more often just open to the idea of hiring a recent graduate. And in fact, many employers will say, how wonderful. If this goes great, we'll just make it continue on. You don't have to go back to classes. So I will say that some internships will say you must be receiving credit for this, or you must be associated with an academic institution. But that's usually a smaller number. More employers will say, "Oh, great, you've graduated and you want to be an intern here. That's wonderful." So that misconception out of the way. I'd say the ideal scenario is that the student treats that internship like it's a job interview, and I say that for everybody. The best scenario for a senior who's going into an internship is the same as for anybody, that you go above and beyond enough that they say, we would love to hire you back. We'd be a fool not to. Not, okay, sorry, we didn't have enough work for you today. Bye. You want to be that
Right.
person that goes above and beyond.
Great. Another question came in specifically about internships aligned with academic advising, so an area that you're well familiar with. Is that an opportunity that you can see students participating in while at Suffolk, specifically around academic advising?
I don't know of any internships in academic advising. That's the very small piece. But I will say is that nobody would be happier to do a day in the life than a higher ed professional, and there's no better city than Boston to get multiple perspectives on that. Um, Being my own career path, one of my first jobs was academic advising before I moved into the career side of things. I know that many people will then go into a graduate degree, which will have an internship or some practical work in the student affairs administrative side of things. But there are lots of ways to get experience without it being an official internship. Maybe it's a work study position in an advising office where you take on increasing responsibility. Maybe it's job shadowing. Maybe, so there's lots of ways that aren't called an internship, but are equally beneficial. And again, I can't think of anyone better than a college professional to develop one of those with you. So
Right. Just a couple more questions. Does a stipend program for unpaid internships apply if the internship is not in Massachusetts?
it does. I often say mistakenly, it's nice to be paid for an internship if you're living in Boston for the summer, but you don't have to be in Boston for the summer. We have students doing it all over the country, and in fact, some students using it internationally as well. So you have to be a Suffolk student. You don't have to be at Suffolk to use it.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. And this might be a bigger question that we'll have to circle back at a later date, but there is a question about training or instruction specifically around artificial intelligence. Is there a formal training program right now, or is that something in the works that you foresee in the near future?
It's a great question and a big question, big answer. I think for every student, I know that AI is being incorporated into some of the seminal coursework about how to effectively, ethically, reasonably utilize AI in your field. So I know that's happening at a baseline level for all students in some of the common coursework. For some majors and departments, it's being even more focused on, specifically in those fields where it's going to impact jobs more. So communications, journalism, content creation. There's a lot more focus on how to work with as opposed to being supplanted by. And we have some leading experts at Suffolk. So Palin Bison, who heads up our undergraduate curriculum in the Sawyer Business School, is a nationally recognized author and speaker about how AI impacts the business curriculum. Andy Perlman, who's our dean for the law school, has been recognized as the most influential tech and AI leader in the legal sphere, and he's helping us influence new AI majors right now. I had a meeting, I don't know if this is public, meeting with Andy and others a couple weeks ago about how to develop some AI add-ons to any major so that students can dive in more. So that's in the future, but it's part of every conversation that I shouldn't say every, but it is part of so much of what we're talking to students about now.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I believe that was the majority of the questions. One final question, the Zoom is being recorded. My understanding is that we will be able to share this at a later date, but I want to thank all of you for participating in this evening, especially given the recent snowstorm that we encountered here at Boston. Thank you for giving us another hour of your Zoom time this evening. And thank you also to Dave Mary, wonderful presentation and understanding of how career development and internships really do impact the Suffolk experience and how each of our students can take full advantage of those opportunities available to them. So thank you again. And with that, I will just turn it over to you, Dave, to say a couple more remarks.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Again, there's no wrong way to ask a student about their future, but know that the answer can change over time and know that we are very excited to work with them. So please always feel free to direct them to the Career Center. When unsure, have them come chat with us. That's what we're here for. And know that we have two big career fairs tomorrow and the next day, which is a great way to sort of get some exposure right away. So love to see them there.
Well, thank you again, Dave, and thank you to all of you for participating this evening.
Have a good night.
Take care.